Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
The sound of clinking glasses and the hum of conversation filled the upscale restaurant, where the warm lighting created a welcoming atmosphere. Evelyn paused briefly at the entrance, her heart pounding in her chest. She adjusted the strap of her purse on her shoulder and ran her hands over her dress, as if smoothing it out could somehow help her control her anxiety. Her eyes swept across the room until they found the figure she was looking for. Nathan was seated at a table off to the side, near the window, where the city lights sparkled in the background. He hadn't changed much. He still had that confident air, those striking features, that gaze that once made her lose herself. Time had been kind to him, but Evelyn wasn't sure she could say the same about her own conscience. Nathan saw her. For a brief second, his expression was unreadable. Then he stood up, keeping his eyes firmly on her, and pulled out the chair, a gesture that evoked memories Evelyn didn't want to revisit right then. She approached, hesitating, and sat down slowly, as if every movement required careful calculation. The silence between them was heavy, loaded with unresolved history. The soft glow of the table lamp cast gentle shadows on their faces, highlighting the contrast between past and present. Evelyn knew this meeting wouldn't be easy. But she had to be there. Nathan observed her for a moment, and almost imperceptibly, his eyes flicked down to her left hand. He saw the gold wedding band gleaming under the restaurant lights. A small detail, but it spoke volumes. Evelyn, realizing his glance, pulled her hand onto her lap, as if trying to hide something that was already no secret. She wet her lips, getting ready to speak, but Nathan beat her to it. "Why did you reach out to me after all these years?" His voice was firm, but not hostile. He didn't show anger or pain. He just wanted to know. Evelyn blinked a few times, feeling her throat tighten for a moment. How could she answer? How could she put into words something that had been corroded by time, regret, and absence? She looked away, focusing on the smooth tabletop, trying to organize her thoughts. The subtle smell of wine in the air, the instrumental melody playing in the background, everything felt distant. Nothing in that room felt real. Except Nathan. She knew she couldn't turn back. She knew there was no way to fix what she'd done. But there was a reason she was there. Something inside her screamed that she needed to see Nathan, that she needed to look into his eyes again. But before any response left her lips, the past hit her like an unavoidable blow. The memory of youth, the promise of a future, the intense love that once united them. And above all, the betrayal that drove them apart. Time melted away before Evelyn's eyes. Her mind traveled back to a past that still beat inside her, a time when everything seemed perfect, when the love she felt for Nathan was an absolute, unquestionable force. They met in med school, in one of those encounters that feel predestined. Nathan was always dedicated, always ready to help any classmate in need. Evelyn was determined, ambitious, wanting to prove to the world, and to herself, that she could reach the impossible. It didn't take long for them to fall in love. And when it happened, it was for real. Their love wasn't lukewarm or dull. It was intense. Full of plans, dreams, and loud laughter in the university hospital corridors. They spent hours studying together, sharing cold coffee and textbooks filled with rushed notes. Back then, the world felt too small to hold everything they felt for each other. When they graduated, the future looked bright. Nathan always said they would open a clinic together one day, that they'd work side by side, saving lives and building something bigger than themselves. Evelyn loved hearing that, though deep down, she knew she wanted more. Not that she didn't love Nathan, she loved him with every part of herself, but the idea of growing, of reaching the top, of being recognized in her field, that consumed her. A year after graduation, they got married. It was a simple ceremony, but full of meaning. Nathan didn't need anything grand, only Evelyn's love. They promised to stay together, build a life, face everything side by side. But time, relentless, began testing that promise. Working in different hospitals meant mismatched schedules, nights when one would come home and the other would already be asleep. Their messages got shorter. The affection turned into routine. The love was still there, but it was being crushed under the weight of adult life. Then came the conference invite. The hospital where Evelyn worked chose her to represent the team at a prestigious medical event, something that could open doors, put her name among the best. Nathan couldn't have been prouder. He'd always believed in her and knew Evelyn was talented enough to go far. On the night before the trip, while she was packing, Evelyn noticed how Nathan watched her, his gaze tender, full of admiration. "This is just the start for you," he said, taking her hand. "You're going to shine." She smiled, her heart warmed by his words. He was her biggest supporter, always had been. But at that moment, Evelyn had no idea that trip would change everything. That the bright future she wanted so much would come at a price she never imagined she'd have to pay. The conference was everything Evelyn had hoped for, and more. The main hall was packed with some of the most renowned doctors in the field, all gathered to discuss advances in modern medicine. The atmosphere pulsed with excitement, a world that completely absorbed her. There, she felt like she belonged to something bigger. Important. Victorious. The days were intense. Inspiring lectures, dinners with specialists, opportunities that seemed to map out her path to success. And in the midst of it all, there was him. Her boss. A charismatic man with a strong presence who seemed to see something in her that others didn't. A special talent. A promise of greatness. The compliments started off subtle. An encouraging word here, a comment about her promising future there. Evelyn liked the attention, liked how he spoke of her potential. Unlike Nathan, who loved her for who she was, her boss made her feel she could be even more. The first dinner happened without her thinking much of it. It was just a gathering of the team, everyone excited after a day of conferences. Wine flowed amid conversations about medicine, new opportunities, and the future they all envisioned. But then, at some point, people started leaving. One by one. And before she realized it, Evelyn was still there. Alone with him. He looked at her differently. A look that said more than any words he could have chosen. The tension in the air was palpable. Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine. That moment only lasted a few seconds, but it left a mark on her as a warning sign. She should have gotten up. She should have left. But she didn't. What happened next was a slip-up. A mistake. A betrayal. In the days that followed, Evelyn convinced herself it didn't mean anything. A momentary lapse. Something she would bury deep inside and never allow to happen again. But her boss didn't see it that way. He kept his distance at first, but still sent lingering looks, subtle touches, veiled promises. And against everything she knew to be right, Evelyn couldn't stay away. Meanwhile, Nathan was at home, proud. Excited. He called her every night to ask about her experience, to say he missed her. Evelyn answered in a slightly hushed voice, trying to ignore the guilt growing inside her like a shadow. Then the conference ended. She came back home, back to Nathan's embrace, to the life they built together. But something was different. She could feel it. Nathan was happy to have her home, but he also seemed watchful. Attentive. There was a restlessness in his gaze. As if he sensed something was off but didn't quite know what it was yet. It was just a few days later that everything fell apart. A photo. Just one. Posted on the hospital's social media. Evelyn and her co-workers gathered during one of the conference lectures. Everyone smiling, celebrating the successful event. But what should have been just a snapshot of the moment ended up triggering the beginning of the end. Nathan saw it. And he saw more than anyone else would. Her boss's hand rested on Evelyn's waist. A discreet gesture, but one that was too intimate. Too familiar. Nathan's heart raced. That might have been just an oversight. It could have been innocent. But what if it wasn't? The doubt was enough to plant something inside him. Something he couldn't ignore. He tried to push the thought away. Tried telling himself Evelyn would never do that to him. But once doubt appears, it grows. It spreads. And before he realized it, Nathan could no longer look at Evelyn the same way. That's when he made a decision. One that would change their lives forever. He hired a private investigator. The investigator was a man of few words. Discreet, efficient. Nathan met him at a downtown cafe and, without beating around the bush, explained why he was there. The man listened carefully, showing no judgment. He'd handled many cases like that and knew exactly what to do. "I need you to find out the truth," Nathan said, his voice carrying something beyond pain. It was a need. He no longer wanted to live with the doubt. The investigator simply nodded and pulled a small notepad from his pocket. "Give me her information. Routine, the hospital she works at, any detail that might help me follow her steps." Nathan swallowed hard. Something in him was still fighting against this decision. He didn't want it to be true. He didn't want to find out that the woman he loved had destroyed everything they'd built. But there was no going back now. The days that followed were silent torture. Evelyn went about her life as usual, as if nothing was happening. She got home late from the hospital, showered, lay down beside him, and sometimes Nathan almost convinced himself this was all in his head. But then the phone rang. "I found what you need," said the investigator's voice on the other end. Nathan's stomach churned. A heavy feeling washed over him even before he heard the details. "I followed her for a few days. She meets him at specific times. Always the same place. I have proof. Photos." Nathan closed his eyes, holding his breath. "Send them to me." A few minutes later, his phone vibrated. The pictures were there. Clear. Undeniable. Evelyn and her boss entering a hotel together. The way he touched her arm, the intimacy in how they laughed with each other. Her face, relaxed, letting go. Nathan felt something inside him break. Everything he'd been avoiding was now right in front of him, impossible to deny. Evelyn wasn't just his wife. She was the woman he'd chosen to spend his life with, the one with whom he built plans and dreams. And now, she was the woman who destroyed him. But he didn't scream. He didn't cry. He didn't do anything impulsive. He just stood there, frozen, staring at those photos like they were the verdict for a crime he never committed. Then, calmly, he started planning his exit. That night, he waited for Evelyn to get home, just like he always did. As soon as she walked into the bedroom, she found a scene that made her freeze in place. The photos were spread out across the wall, stuck there one by one, a cruel display of the truth she'd tried to hide. Evelyn gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. Her eyes widened, and she stepped back, as if she could escape what she was seeing. "Nathan, this isn't," but her voice failed her. Because there was no excuse she could give. Nathan stood near the door, watching her. He didn't say a word. He didn't ask anything. He didn't yell. He just grabbed his things and left. And that was the last time he saw her. Until now. The divorce happened quickly, without fights or attempts at reconciliation. Nathan didn't want to argue, didn't want to hear excuses or justifications. He just moved on, erasing Evelyn from his life like someone closing a book and deciding never to reopen it. He focused on his job, on the career he'd always loved, letting time take care of mending what was broken. But some wounds never fully heal. Some pains become part of who we are. Evelyn, for her part, followed the path she'd chosen. She married the man for whom she had destroyed her marriage. Her boss, the one who made her feel important, desired, powerful. At first, it seemed like the right choice. He gave her status, comfort, a promising future. But over time, she realized there was something she would never get back. Nathan. The years passed, but the shadow of regret never left her. On lonely nights, staring at the dark ceiling of her bedroom, next to a man who no longer stirred any feelings in her, Evelyn wondered how things would have been if she had chosen differently. If she had chosen to stay with the one who truly loved her, the one who was her life partner, not just an empty promise. Now, sitting at that restaurant table, facing Nathan again after so many years, she felt her heart grow heavy. The past weighed on her. Tears blurred her vision, and her voice emerged as an almost whispered confession, charged with the regret that had built up over a decade. I regret every single day what I did. You were and always will be the love of my life. I messed everything up, and I could never fix it. Nathan watched her in silence. His face was a mask of neutrality. He never looked away, never showed any obvious emotion. He just listened. Until, after a moment that seemed to stretch on forever, he asked something Evelyn never expected to hear. Do you want to get back together with me? The question hit Evelyn like a shock. Her chest tightened, and her eyes widened in surprise. After all these years, after everything that happened, was there still a chance? Did Nathan, despite it all, still want her? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her mind tried to process what was happening. Then, slowly, a timid smile appeared on her lips, like she'd just woken up from a long nightmare and found a glimmer of hope. Maybe, we can try, she said softly, almost hesitantly. Nathan leaned in. His approach was slow, deliberate. Evelyn felt her heart race, but she didn't pull away. Her body instinctively moved toward his. Then their lips touched. At first, the kiss was gentle. A rediscovery. But slowly, something stronger surfaced. A wave of memories and longing, a desire that had been kept at bay for years. The kiss turned passionate. Nathan held her tightly, pulling her closer. Evelyn gave in completely, closing her eyes, feeling his warmth, forgetting the world around them. But what she didn't know, was that Nathan had already noticed something she was entirely unaware of. He arrived at the restaurant early. He wanted to prepare himself for that reunion. And as soon as he walked in, he noticed a presence he hadn't expected. Evelyn's husband. The man who destroyed his marriage. The same man Evelyn had left him for. Nathan frowned when he saw him sitting at a distant table, watching everything. A hard, suspicious look in his eyes. Then the truth became crystal clear. He saw Evelyn's message. He knew about the meeting. And he got there first. Nathan thought about leaving right away. Just walking out without giving Evelyn what she wanted. But then something stirred within him. Something dark. If fate had given him this chance, why not return the favor in the same way? Why not play the same game that once destroyed his life? So he decided to go through with it. The kiss became even more intense. He made sure it would be unforgettable. A show. A scene that would be burned into that man's memory forever. When he finally pulled away, Nathan looked at Evelyn and, in a cutting tone, said, "It was nice seeing you again. But please, don't look for me anymore." Evelyn frowned, confused. She blinked a few times, trying to grasp what she'd just heard. What? But, she started to say, but Nathan raised his hand, signaling her to stop. "Please, turn around," he said, his voice now quieter but filled with something dark. "Your husband's right there. Sitting at that table." Evelyn felt a chill course through her. Her body went rigid. Slowly, she turned her head and then she saw him. Her husband was seated just a few yards away. His eyes fixed on her. His face frozen in shock. Evelyn's heart sank. Nathan calmly stood up, straightening the sleeves of his shirt as if nothing had happened. Then, walking past Evelyn's husband, he paused for a second and, with no emotion in his voice, said, "Welcome to the club." The man froze. His eyes widened, and his mouth fell open slightly, as if he were trying to say something but no words would come out. Evelyn realized what was happening too late. Nathan left the restaurant without looking back. Evelyn stayed there, paralyzed, trying to pick up the pieces of what had just unfolded. Trying to find something to say. Something to justify what, deep down, she knew was unjustifiable. Her husband, now, felt the bitter taste of betrayal he himself had helped create. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.